How to exclude patterns, files, and directories with grep. Since 1974, the Linux grep command has been helping people find strings in files. But sometimes grep is just too thorough. Here are several ways to tell grep to ignore different things. The grep command searches text files looking for strings that match the search patterns you provide on the command line. The power of grep lies in its use of regular expressions. These let you describe what you're looking for, rather than have to explicitly define it. The birth of grep predates Linux. It was developed in the early 1970s on Unix. It takes its name from the GREP key sequence in the ed line editor, incidentally pronounced ee-dee. This stood for Global Regular Express Search. Print matching lines. Grep is famously, perhaps notoriously, thorough and single-minded. Sometimes it'll search files or directories you'd rather it didn't waste its time on, because the results can leave you unable to see the wood for the trees. Of course, there are ways to rein grep in. You can tell it to ignore patterns, files, and directories so that grep completes its searches faster, and you're not swamped with meaningless false positives. To search with grep, you can pipe input to it from some other process such as cat. Or you can provide a filename as the last command line parameter. We're using a short file that contains the text of the poem Jabberwocky by Lewis Carroll. In these two examples, we're searching for lines that match the search term, Jabberwock. The lines that contain matches to the search clue are listed for us, with the matching element in each line highlighted in red. That's straightforward searching. But what if we want to exclude lines that contain the word, Jabberwock, and print the rest? We can accomplish that with the v-invert match option. This lists the lines that don't match the search term. We can exclude as many terms as we wish. Let's filter out any lines that contain Jabberwock, and any lines that contain and. To achieve this, we'll use the e-expression option. We need to use it for each search pattern we're using. If we use the e-extended regexes option, we can combine the search patterns with, which in this context doesn't indicate a pipe. It's the logical OR operator. The format of the command is the same if you want to use a regex pattern instead of an explicit search clue. This command will exclude all lines that start with any letter in the set of oct. To see lines that contain a pattern but which also don't contain another pattern, we can pipe grep into grep. We'll search for all lines that contain the word Jabberwock, and then filter out any lines that also contain the word slain. We can ask grep to look for a string or pattern in a collection of files. You could list each file on the command line, but with many files that approach doesn't scale. Note that the name of the file containing the matching line is displayed at the start of each line of output. However, in this directory there are other txt files with nothing to do with the poem. If we search for the word sword with the same command structure, we get a lot of false positives. The results we want are masked by the deluge of false results from the other files that have the txt extension. The word vorpal didn't match anything, but sword is included in the word password, so it was found many times in some pseudo log files. We need to exclude these files. To do that, we'll use the exclude option. To exclude a single file called volume log-1.txt, we'd use this command. In this instance, we want to exclude multiple log files with names that start with volume. The syntax we need is, when we use the art-dereference recursive option, grep will search entire directory trees for us. By default, it will search through all files in those locations. There may well be multiple types of files we wish to exclude. Beneath the current directory on this test machine, there are nested directories containing log files, CSV files, and MD files. These are all types of text files that we want to exclude. We could use an exclude option for each file type, but we can achieve what we want more efficiently by grouping the file types. This command excludes all files that have CSV or MD extensions, and all txt files whose names start with either volume or log. If the files we want to ignore are contained in directories and there are no files in those directories that we do want to search, we can exclude those entire directories. The concept is very similar to that of excluding files, except we use the exclude dir option and name the directories to ignore. We've excluded the backup directory, but we're still searching through another directory called backup2. It'll come as no surprise that we can use the exclude dir option multiple times in a single command. Note that the path to excluded directories should be given relative to the directory the search will start in. Don't use the absolute path from the root of the file system. You can combine file and directory exclusions in the same command. If you want to exclude all files from a directory and exclude certain file types from the directories that are searched, use this syntax. Sometimes with grep it can feel like you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. It makes a big difference to remove the haystack. Text source: howtogeek.com